Hello folks and welcome. Linux Mint 21.3 Xfce desktop. Filming in 1920 by 1080. Adjust your YouTube player accordingly if necessary. You're watching this on Linux for Seniors. You know, Linux is for any age, but the name of my channel is Linux for Seniors. If you'd like to subscribe, you should see an icon in the lower corner here by the time and date. If you don't, find me on YouTube if you still like to subscribe. This video will be more than 10 minutes. And today I'm going to talk about some photo editing tools that should already be installed that complement your file manager Thunar. And I'll show one that you can install to make weird wallpapers like this. And I'll show you what the original photo looks like in a minute. But let me first get over some preliminaries. So Thunar, your file manager, has gone through a lot of changes over the years, and we have too. But we don't pretend to know every bell and whistle on software sometimes. And sometimes software changes where we just don't discover those tools until we watch videos like on my channel or someone else's. And sometimes it's word of mouth, and sometimes it's just plain. So I'm going to cover some basic settings first, and then I'll get into photo editing tools that complement Thunar, your file manager, 4.18.4, as long as we understand what version we're on. So today I'm using a tower computer. I normally will tell you if I'm filming on a laptop. But in general, what I'm going to talk about is the preliminary settings first. And then we'll move into photo editing and stuff like that. And then I will also talk about best practices when it comes to that kind of stuff. All right, so I'm using a tower computer, standard keyboard, computer mouse with a scroll wheel on it, not a laptop with a touchpad. So scroll wheel, computer mouse, holding down the control key while scrolling. I've shown this many times, but I never know when I have a new viewer or a new subscriber. Very easy to do. Did you know that Thunar actually has a setting where it will remember the different sizes now? All right, in the edit preferences, this is normally off. And so is that one. So let me show you what those two do. So if I were to resize this using that control key on my scroll wheel and make those dinky or tiny, these will also be dinky or tiny. So what if Sam is our made up user for today, would like to have these in jumbo over here and then maybe tiny over here? Well, then he has an option, and he can go to edit preferences and turn this one on. Okay, so I'm going to resize this back up. Maybe we can go jumbo here if you like. But in here, he can make things small and then switch between the two, and they retain the sizes. Okay? So Xfce desktops are known to be lightweight desktops. So that doesn't mean you have lightweight settings either. There's lots of settings some of you folks know and some not so much. I'm just showing you some options today. One of them is also drawing frames around your thumbnails, like picture frames, which is done through this setting right here, which is normally off. And that produces a clean looking frame. If you can't see that, I'll make this a little bit bigger. Moving that out of the way. So you can see the butterfly has a frame around it. As I turn this off, not now. This is off by default, by the way. All right, let me resize this back up. Side pane, these guys here, have two modes, shortcut or tree. I have one set at 48, one at 64, filming in 1920 by 1080. As one more reminder, adjust your YouTube player if necessary. So Control B turns that off, Control B turns that on. Control E switches that mode to this. Control E turns that off. Control E switches that back on, and Control B goes back to that. The size of those icons, our edit preferences, are done through here. If you get confused, it's View, Side Pane, Control B, Control E, shortcuts or tree, your choice. The file manager behavior, not yours, is set to double click. If you change that to single click, all bets are off as far as some of my settings I'm about to show you. In other words, they'll behave differently. Double clicking, single clicking. The default is double. Now, for you folks that are going to bring in digital photos from a digital camera and you plug it in to your USB port, you may want to investigate the advanced option. And this is kind of hard to see, but there's a configure box right here. Most of you folks will miss this. In here is a camera option. Import digital photographs when connected. All right, next, shortcuts. So I'm going to talk about a couple of them today. So down here, this is confusing to a lot of people. They go shortcuts, Control B. What exactly does that do? Or what does tree mean? The one out in the yard? No, the tree is referring to this. And so is the shortcuts. Because if I click this, it says side pane, Control B and E. That's what this is referring to. You can also change that by clicking that and pressing a different key. In other words, keyboard assignments. Be careful which ones you use though. Some of the predefined ones you'll have difficulty with. Control C, Control V are copy and paste commands, for instance. So up here is split view. I call it split pane sometimes. Maybe it's the Icelandic in me. But in either case, I think we understand that F3 would probably do us a little bit benefit of having two things. What is this good for? Well, first of all, I can resize the icons independently, but I can also change the folders or even hard drives. And then I can copy and paste stuff. Well, we're going to use it for images today. So I'm going to do F3 to turn this off for a second and talk about, and I'm going to get rid of that folder because I'm going to recreate it. It's just a junk folder. So we have some images in here. So let's talk about the importance of your images. Don't make the same mistake I did, which is start editing a photo right away without copying it. Thunar has lots of tools to make backups. I also have videos on that, and more importantly, I also have videos on how to use grsync and rsync with script files. I have all those videos if you just look through my library. But I'm going to talk about some basic practices when it comes down to dealing with your photos, your images, your precious images on your vacation trip, or maybe some precious photo of your friends or family. And you're starting to edit an image for whatever reason. You're sending it out to the printer to get a 4x6 or an 8x10, whatever your purpose is. You brought in the photos into Thunar. You're going to be doing some edits. Whether you brought them from the cloud, from Apple, Google, or whatever service, you downloaded them, you're editing them. You brought it in from your digital camera. Make a backup before you play with these things. At a best case scenario, create yourself a folder, call it junk. Take your originals and make copies of them. So let me show you some of my methods. So I'm going to use F3 to get the split pane going, and then I'm going to open that folder. So this is junk, this is regular pictures. Junk, pictures. Now let's talk about selections. I could draw boxes around these things and then deselect, or I can just do it individually. Click, hold the control key down, click, click, and find images you want. I'll pick a couple more. Just to give you that example, I'm going to let go of the control key, right click, and hit either Control C or copy. Control C is a copy command. It also works in Microsoft Windows. Click in here and hit paste, or Control V as in Victor. Now I have copies of these images so I can play with them without destroying the originals. F3 to get rid of that. So Sam is our made up name user for today, and this is his junk folder. Now Sam is going to do some editing. So Thunar has complement tools. In other words, my reference to that is it's not using Thunar, but it's complementing that. And that tool here is a tool that I'm going to be using called Pix, and you should have this installed already. If you're not too sure how this works, is the tool, and you can also use the space bar, is your default tool that opens up that image, which is right click, opens with, and you can set the default app. Image Viewer is normally how this thing opens. Image Viewer also has a lot of things to offer you. But today I'm going to talk about Pix. Okay? How you set that to Pix is right click, open with, set default, and then find Pix in this menu and click that. Up here, your machine more than likely will say Image Viewer or Crosshair currently. But if you click that and do the open, that'll become your new default app. I'm also going to talk about NoMacs, which you can actually install from your software manager as a second option. If you're trying to get geo information for a picture, for instance, that tool comes in handy for that. I'm going to open this up briefly and talk about that. So I'm going to use NoMacs just briefly. All right, this tool does not come with very good documentation, so I will cover this a little bit deeper in a minute. But you can see where this photo was taken from. Yosemite Valley is very beautiful in California. It's lots of waterfalls, but you can see where it's taking that picture. All right, so this is the NoMac tool, and I'll come back to that a little bit later. So again, I set the default from Image Viewer into Pix. So when I click this now, it opens that up with this tool. So let me talk a little bit about Pix if you're not too sure. Again, this is like a tutorial. I do recommend subscription because this is definitely going to be probably close to 30 minutes when it's all said and done, because there's a lot of things to talk about. So the size of this image is 1920 by 1080. Again, we're viewing here, holding down the control key while zooming in and out. We're just still viewing. We haven't resized the image. We're resizing our view only, just to be clear about that. If I wanted to resize the image, I use this tool for that. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But let me start at the top. So it's full screen, and I can also hold down the control key and zoom. This came from wallpaperswide.com if you're curious, and escape key. That's just for zooming. All right, same size or actual size, and then fit the window. It's whatever window you're working with, this box. And then we have some general resizing tools for viewing. And we also have a scroll bar. My preferred, again, is holding down my control key while scrolling with my computer mouse. That's view. Rotating image, just be careful with that. It will give you a warning box that it's going to distort your image. But if you do decide to rotate images. So that's that. Walking across here is properties of this image. It has multiple sections and sometimes metadata. This one doesn't have that. But this has 12 JPEG, that's what the name of it is. It's the size, modified, where it's located, it's a JPEG, and the size. And then I have a histogram. I'm going to come back to this in a couple seconds. Over here is a digital image. I'm going to open this also with Pix. In here, you can see that the metadata is quite extensive on this one. Collapsing the tree. This is a photo that was taken with an iPhone 6 back in 2017. All the particulars on size of that is 2400 and change by 3200 and change, and more importantly, it also has metadata. Now, iPhones are notorious for giving you a whole bunch of information with your photos. And so does a lot of digital cameras too that have GPS locations also. You'll see GPS information in here. But you can see all the data that came with this. So you can view that also in Pix. Okay? And in other applications. So let's get back to this guy. So we're still working with that. And again, he doesn't have metadata, but that's okay. We're going to continue on with the paintbrush. So it's edit time. We can save the image, but I would get into the habit of doing save as and always change the name. Keep in mind, don't do what I did, was start editing your photo and then save it as the same name, and you just overwritten the original image. Always work from a copy if you're doing edits. Maybe you're sending it out to the printer. Maybe you're making wallpapers. There's all kinds of reasons why people manipulate photos. All right, save as. We have undo, whatever you're doing, also Control Z. And then we have a redo. We can also change the colors. There's a couple of tools that are real quick. Okay, I'm going to hit the escape key to get out. Then we have this, and you can drag from the different colors. So I want to make this really red and hit escape. We can also do some strange stuff in here. I'm just going to try to pull that to where you can see his face a little bit. And I'm going to change some of the thresholds and stuff in here to let you see some of the other objects you can do with this. Hitting the escape and continuing. That was this tool. And then we have the brightness, saturation, and etc. Escape. We can also grab a hold of this line and do some manipulation with this image. Okay, it's kind of washed out there. So we're going to leave the line. Escape. Magic little wand here. You got some, well, quick filters, including like vintage and even negative. Can make for some special effects when you're doing wallpapers, for instance, or whatever purpose you want to use this for. Special effects. Hitting the escape key gets me out. Eyedropper, and I'm going to hit close on that one, and red eye. He doesn't have any red eye to play with. So on this case, I'm going to hit the back button key. All right, the rotation, 90 degree, and then flipping the image. So you can do some different effects with that also. All right, rotate. Now we can talk about resizing and crop. I'll talk about this tool first. It's pretty simple. You just grab the thing that you want to crop and then do the accept thing. You can also do the different scaling on that. Escape. Now let's talk about resizing. Now you're going to physically resize the image itself. So down here is an info box. 1920 by 1080 is what this currently is at. The proposed new dimensions is actually 480 by 270 because I've got it set for 25%. So I'm going to convert that back to pixels. Okay, just giving you some examples. And this is the last image that so if I didn't want to do that, I can do 800 though, and hit enter. And it changes the height also because I got aspect ratio turned on. So it's not distorted, in other words. Down here at the bottom, this tool just shows me the image I'm working with out of a thumbnail area. Okay, so the info box does come in handy. So it tells me the original image, the new dimensions is going to be 800 by 450. Now let's talk about accepting it and then saving it as. And my rule of thumb is always change the file name. Don't do like I did years ago by overwriting your existing files. So 12A is what I'm going to call this and hit save. You're going to get some additional stuff like compression, and this is draggable and smoothing. Again, this is also something you can select or just leave as default. So let's compare those two. They're right next to each other. All right, so image-wise, I went from 1920 by 1080, the same screen res I'm filming in, by 800 by 450. And of course, we get the file sizes will definitely be different. Okay, this one did not have any image information, unlike these will. Okay, so image information is also in here. If it's a JPEG, if it's a PNG, normally it'll be missing. So let's give you that example. I'm going to open this up and convert this image into a PNG. I normally don't do it with big images like that. If you've ever seen my video on GIMP made last year in November 2023, I take a standard image, convert it down to like a 64 by 64 and convert it to a PNG to use as icons. I'm going to do a resizer. I'll just leave the defaults. All right, however long your computer takes to crunch. So I have JPEG, PNG. No digital information here. Digital information here. Is it lost? No, it's not actually. I'm going to open this up, and this is opening up with NoMacs. So what I'm going to do here is open this up with Pix. So you can see sometimes depending on when you install these tools, is what they're going to use to open these things with. So this is a PNG image using the light bulb, and you can see the metadata is not been stripped off. It's still here, including the GPS data. I can even do it this way, right click, open this with NoMacs, and get the GPS data on there. It's still Yosemite Valley, California. That part doesn't change. All right, if you are curious about how I'm doing this in Firefox, holding down the control key while scrolling is the same principle. And I let go of the control key when I want to rezoom or center that. And then holding down the control key, I can scroll up and down to zoom in and out. I'm going to pull that down and close. That's another option. Double click, resizing the box. All right, so that is the NoMacs tool, by the way, and it has very, very limited documentation. However, it does have some cute tools, which I'm going to pull and show you in a second. Because I'm going to take and make some different wallpapers using really weird stuff. Like that. That is this image right here. And you're probably going, well, wait a minute, it has a bunch of blue around it. Yeah, it does. That's this image right here. All I did was use a special tool on it. This, trust me, it is that image. Let me get this out of the way. I'm going to open this with NoMacs and I'm going to use Tiny Planet. Now you can see exactly what that looks like. Okay? So let me close that now. And that tool is adjustable. Let's get back on topic. Go with Painter Guy. All right, so I already presented the properties on histogram. Now the tools, again, you got the resizer over here and you can do this in percentages or pixels. Okay, and then escape. You continue on, got some comments, we got some tags, and we got some other stuff. And also some strange stuff in here too. I would be really careful with changing dates, but anyways, you can see all the stuff that you can do in here. So again, this tool is Pix. To activate that tool, all you do is open with set default Pix. You're doing that from here. All right, let me talk a little bit about NoMacs. You already saw that I did this weird wallpaper here. Let me do a couple more for you, and we'll use that one. So I'm going to open this one up now with NoMacs. This tool you need to install through Software Manager. All right, so you saw that the geolocation was on the photograph. This doesn't have geolocation. This image doesn't have that, in other words. And this came from wallpaperswide.com also. All right, so full screen, sorry, 100%. It's a weird symbol. Sizable inside your windowed area, and then full screen, which is the same as a F11. Okay, F11 does the same thing. All right, zooming this part of it, you can hit the scroll, hold down the control wheel and scroll with your computer mouse. Okay, that's just resizing the view. Again, be clear about this. This is still 1920 by 1080. If you want to resize the image, then it's that tool. And you can resize them independently also by doing that. It disables that side of the house, so I'm just going to make this side 800. And that became very tall because I didn't change that part of it. Let me go full screen, F11. Probably don't want that, but I'm just showing you you can. Control Z to undo. Okay, so lots of tools are in here. I'm just going to talk about the Tiny Planet tool. The Tiny Planet tool also has adjustments. I'm going to convert this image that you currently see right here into this for new wallpaper. Save as. And we're going to call this wallpaper 2 or something like that. Can't even spell. Well, English is my second language, so I'll use that as an excuse. All right, so let's go take a look at that. Kind of interesting, huh? Yeah. I'm going to do the same thing with the Stormtrooper and make something weird out of that. Or we can, you already saw what that one looked like. So why don't we How about if we do Painter Guy? Okay, I'm going to open that up with NoMacs. And let's take a look at Tiny Planet. Not so much with him as far as default tools. We can do Computer Guy. Let's see what that looks like with Tiny Planet. He still looks weird. So that'd be a no. Let's try the Stormtrooper. And now that's an interesting effect. So let's save that as wallpaper 2 or 3. We already got wallpaper 2. All right, so let you see the original first. Kind of an ominous bunch. And I don't remember where I got this wallpaper from. And here's that Tiny Planet conversion out of the same wallpaper that you can't even discern that those are Stormtroopers. To make some weird wallpapers out of it. All right, so that again is NoMacs. So going back to pics, again, you can do your standard resizing here. You can do a lot of alterations with these color tools and rotations. And don't forget, you can do a straight conversion from JPEG to PNGs if that's necessary. Thank you for watching.